Welcome back, welcome back. The anti-globalisation movement doesn't go in for a great deal of hero worship, but it does have a soft spot for some of its heroes. They include, for instance, the late Anita Roddick, who sadly died this week. She founded the anti-brand brand, The Body Shop, an eclectic and hugely successful mix of global concern, animal welfare and jojoba shampoo. Then there's the Canadian writer Naomi Klein, who wrote the Bible for this movement, No Logo. Now she's back with a new book, The Shock Doctrine, which again points out the flaws in the invisible hand of the unfettered marketplace. And she joins us right now. Naomi, welcome.
Thank you.
This new work concentrates the attack still on capitalism and so on, but particularly here, disaster capitalism is the phrase. Linking disaster and capitalism in that way. Can you just explain that in a paragraph or so?
Absolutely. The book looks at how major crises, large-scale disasters like wars, terrorist attacks, natural disasters have been harnessed to impose radical free market ideology. So an example would be New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, after the levees broke. The city was turned into and continues to be a sort of laboratory for right-wing ideas. The public school system in New Orleans has been completely made over into a private system, or a charter school system, as it's called in the States. When I was in Sri Lanka after the tsunami, 6 months after, I found that the wave had been used as an opportunity by foreign lenders to clear the coastline of poor fishing people who were moved inland while the coasts were being auctioned off to resort developers. That's what I mean by disaster capitalism. I first started writing about this when I was in Iraq after the invasion, looking at how the shock and awe a military campaign was harnessed to impose what economists call economic shock therapy. If we remember that first year, even that first summer in Baghdad after the invasion, while the city was still burning, Paul Bremer rode in and it shredded the economic architecture of Iraq and turned it into a model free market economy, or what The Economist magazine called the wish list for foreign investors.
And are you saying, well, it depends which one you're citing, I suppose, but are you saying that these dreadful capitalists, as it were, actually planned the events in order to clean up afterwards, or that they just exercised opportunism after the event?
I think it's the latter. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I think what there is a profound recognition that these moments of dislocation are not just opportunities, but in many ways the only opportunities when you can push through these unpopular policies, that democracy and consent is fairly inhospitable to these kind of extreme country makeovers. It's not about creating the crises, it's about having the ideas lying around when the crisis hits. So in part, I think I think part of the reason why conspiracy theories are so rampant, for instance, why so many people believe that the Bush administration was behind 9/11, is because they see how immediately the crises are exploited and how enormous profits are made.
You don't think that, though, do you?
I don't, and I actually am proposing an alternate explanation, which is to say, look, Donald Rumsfeld, George Bush, Dick Cheney, they are all believers in the shock doctrine, which means they have their ideas ready. I don't think they caused Hurricane Katrina either, but you saw that immediate move to pounce. Within days, the Republicans were talking about turning the entire Gulf Coast of the United States into what they were calling a tax-free free enterprise zone. Does that mean that they caused the hurricane, that they planned for the levees to break? No. It means that this whole apparatus of right-wing think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, Cato, the American Enterprise Institute are ready with their ideas lying around. And I have the minutes of a meeting that took place just 2 weeks after the levees broke in New Orleans, a meeting that took place at the Heritage Foundation with top-level Republican politicians, where they came up with a list of 32 free market solutions for Hurricane Katrina. And that was everything from drilling in Alaska for oil to converting the school system.
But I mean, the things that some people would say that capitalism did pretty well sorting out Japan or Germany after the war, and the dear old economist who has a thing about you in a way, but says here that the rule of corporations, as she sees it, is inherently repressive and exploitative of powerless citizens. Democracy is a sham. She gives capitalism no credit for the extraordinary progress seen in recent decades in reducing poverty and other measures of deprivation, notably child mortality and so on. That you just paint the black picture and you ignore the good side.
Well, you know, I actually think that, you know, that criticism is coming from the right, but I'm also being criticized from the left for being, you know, too moderate, too Keynesian, because this isn't just an anti-markets book. This book is about is not against all forms of markets. It's actually about how a very radical, sort of fundamentalist strain of capitalism that was based out of the University of Chicago has waged a campaign over the last 50 years against a mixed economy, against a balanced economy, like the post-war economies of Japan and Germany. And, you know, I'm willing to debate the Economist editors anytime, anywhere. I've done it before. It didn't go well for them.
Thank you very much. Did you know Anita Roddick, by the way?
I did, yeah. I interviewed her for No Logo, and we collaborated, and I was so sad to hear the news.
So were we all. In a moment, I'll be talking to top American pollster Frank Luntz about the race for the White House. That's after this incredibly short break.